Well, hello friends, and welcome to another Ask ZAC. Today we're going to talk about how and why I started playing the guitar in the first place. While you're thinking about it, please go down in the corner and subscribe if you haven't already. And to support the show, go to askzac.com and go to the store, and you can pick up a mug or a t-shirt, and that's greatly appreciated. All right, so just kind of going in the Wayback Machine to, right before I started playing the guitar. I did not come from a musical family. Nobody played an instrument. My father had been a music fan, before his children were born. So before I and my sister and I were born, he used to go and see a lot of live music. He saw Elvis in the 50s and Little Richard and Ray Charles and Ray Price, and on and on and on. But when my parents got married and they started having kids, music and of course, kind of nightlife things kind of ended for them. So the only time, we didn't have music playing through the house. The only time I'd really hear any music was when it was my dad and I in the car. He would have it on a country station. And so, this is, so you'd hear a lot of John Denver. This is the late 70s, early 80s when I really remember stuff. So you're hearing John Denver or Mel McDaniel, Baby's Got Her Blue Jeans On, or Conway Twitty, Tight Fitting Jeans, or different things like that. So, and the other kind of musical input I was getting was from the school bus. So, of course, there was always some kid with a radio on, and they'd be. So from that, I'd hear like Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, or Toto, Africa, and Rosanna, and things like that. That was the early 1980s. So, and as far as what I was into at the time, I was I was obsessed with the Second World War, and I have no idea why. But I just read about the Second World War like crazy and played war games with a lot of older kids. So again, we're talking about I'm like 11 or 12 years old, and I was playing with guys that were like 15, 16, 17 years old. And otherwise, I was a real introvert, and I didn't really have any friends. I had one friend that I hung out with some, and so here's like one of the war games that I would play, Axis and Allies. So this is something I spent hours and hours and hours, playing, and I still have it, and I still have all the pieces and everything to it, of course, because it's a sickness. And so this would be like a typical book that that I still have. So this is D-Day, again, obsessing, over the Second World War. So my mother decided that it would be a good idea if I had another hobby that I could do by myself. And so she just thought out of the blue, well, why don't I get him a guitar and sign him up for lessons? So that's what she did. I got this little, Carlos acoustic guitar, which was, a guitar that was, distributed by Kaman, who, of course, at that time was also distributing Takamine and Ovation. And it was just a really inexpensive all plywood, acoustic guitar with a chipboard case. I remember it had a little blue strap with it. And that's what I, learned to play on. And my guitar teacher was the music minister at our church. And so the first tunes I learned how to play, I learned the chords to certain, choruses that we played at church. And then, of course, on my own, I was learning things like Peter Gunn, going. And of course, I could sit around and play that for just forever. And then as I've said in some past episodes, my parents really didn't let me listen to, popular music. I couldn't go out and buy, rock music of the day. But I had a record player in my room by this point, record and cassette player, and I found my mom's old 45s, and in there were the Ventures. So from that, I learned Walk Don't Run and Perfidia and different things. And also early Beatles. So Beatles from around 64, like I Want to Hold Your Hand and, She Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. And, thinking back on it, those early things that you hear that really kind of drive you to play, those stick with you. And so I have to admit that the Ventures and early Beatles and, Elvis and different things of my mom's 45s, those were a big part of, what I thought a guitar should sound like and the way I thought it should be played. And so those tones were all cleaner. It wasn't until later that the Beatles, started, doing things like Revolution, where they're, plugged in and diming the board and getting a fuzz sound, or even the Ventures started using more drive and fuzz and things like that on their recordings. So those recordings really, kind of left an indelible mark on what, a guitar should sound like. And so, of course, in the beginning, I didn't want to practice. And my mother made me practice. And, then I got into it. And then the pastor of our church, again, I'd only been playing the guitar for a couple of months, but he said, you need to start playing, in church. And I was like, I didn't say it, but I was like, really? So again, I just knew some basic chords and things like that, but he was wanting to, really, I guess, support me and push me musically. And so I started playing with the youth group right away. And then after a short period of time, I started playing on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, services at our church. And again, by this point, I'm 13 years old, and I've only been playing a couple of months, 6 months maybe at best. And, I'm playing at our church. Now, here's the thing. Now, by the time I was actually playing in church, of course, the Carlos guitar was not cutting it. So my dad bought me an Ovation balladeer cutaway with a pickup and a little Sidekick Reverb 35 amp. And so I had those, and I would play at church, but I wouldn't be mic'd up. And so I would actually have the amp turned toward me just so I could kind of hear myself over the whole rest of the band. Remember, this is a Pentecostal church, and even in the mid-1980s, they've got drums and bass, piano, organ, Fender Rhodes, acoustic guitar, a bunch of background singers, and of course a lot of people with tambourines and shakers and things like that. So just to hear myself, I needed that. And so that's what I did in the beginning, and there were no charts at all. Of course, the tunes weren't horribly complex, but I mean, most of the tunes had, 3 to 6 chords total in them, but there were no charts at all. And so you would just play the song, and they would start playing the song, and I would have to learn how to follow along. And so I learned a lot about voice leading and kind of ear training from that, because I started hearing, okay, we're in the key of D. Okay, we're probably going to go to, it's like, what choices do you have from there? Well, most of the time it's probably going to go to either a G or an A or a B minor. And I started learning about, okay, the melody's doing this. I couldn't explain it at that point. But I started learning, like, you know, when you go to a dominant 7 chord, it's probably going to go to the, probably going to go to the 4 chord. And I started learning all these voice leading things and how to play and how to follow other people, and how, some of the worship leaders at the church didn't play an instrument, and they would just give symbols like this, and I was like, what does that mean? And, and they would just dive into some song, and it was the number of sharps or flats. So, they would, however many fingers they did up, that was sharps. And so then you have to figure out what key, you're going to play in, or fingers down would be, flats. And, so this one singer was always, singing songs in E flat. And of course he'd, have to learn how to use a capo and all that jazz. So that was amazing training for me, because as a 13-year-old, again, I was playing in youth group on Friday nights. I was had rehearsal on Thursday nights for big church, as it was, played Sunday morning and Sunday night, and then also played Wednesday night. And I did that every week in, week out for, a number of years. And, eventually, picked up an electric guitar. I picked up a Squire, made in Japan Strat, and a chorus pedal. And, I kept using that sidekick reverb, for a while, and then, made my way through all sorts of, different pieces of gear. But, yeah, it was really kind of strange, because the guitar was not something that I necessarily wanted to do. It was something that was kind of forced on me in a way. And, because I think parents, do that at times. They try to expose their kids to different things to see what catches them, what gets their attention. And so I'm grateful for my mom for exposing me to the guitar. I had no idea it was going to become this, kind of lifelong obsession that I've been involved in, in music, since I was 12. I've either been, kind of been going to school and playing music on the side, or, I've been, a guitar tech and a guitar player, and I've worked in the, kind of MI, musical instrument realm, of course, working for True Tone for close to 13 years now. But it kind of, really steered my life in a neat direction, and I'm grateful for that. So thanks, Mom. And yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed me kind of telling my story of how I started playing the guitar. I hope that some of you will go ahead and write in the comments how you started playing the guitar, because I think it'd be fun to kind of share our stories of how we started playing the guitar. I was always jealous of the guys that had, they were older than me, that had the story of, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Yeah, I always thought that was, and I heard that a lot in the True Tone Lounge. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan and immediately knew I had to be a guitar player. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope y'all have a great week, and I'll see you next time on the Ask ZAC show. See ya. Bye-bye.